Floppy Waffle 69 here. And today's video, we are looking at the next ship in our Down the Line series, going to the Delny. This is the Tier 8 Soviet destroyer, the Kiev. Now, right off the gate, or right out the get-go here, right out the gates, I want to talk about how much fun I had with this ship. This ship, to me, is just a flat-out upgrade to what we experienced down at Tier 7. Now, as you know, because you watched the previous video, I'm certain, I wasn't a big fan of the Minsk. The Minsk to me kind of felt in this kind of direction. I couldn't play my uber aggressive healing gunboat destroyer build with her. So I opted for the smoke screen, which I found better success, with her in playing in that regard. Now, when I go back to the Kiev, or when I play the Kiev, I go right back to my healing build with the repair party, just because I believe I get a little bit more out of it than I did with the the Minsk, for example. That being said, I do recommend the smoke screen for like newer players or people that maybe just don't feel 100% comfortable with that aggressive kind of play style, open water gunboating. And again, it's going to be more useful in more situations per se. But for me, being that cockroach, that pest, open water, the Kiev definitely utilizes the heal well in my playstyle, though it definitely fits it. So, and this ship all around to me is just a great ship. But we are going to start seeing stiffer competition with Tier 8. I think the Tier 8 matchmaker is one of the worst in the game currently, as you are definitely seeing Tier 10 ships definitely frequently, and definitely Tier 9s even more frequently. So you are going to be going against way harder competition. And there are just some pretty damn good competition for gunboats out there, just to split the Akatsuki, to name just a couple. So, and again, now that you can see Tier 10s, I mean, you're going against Gdansk, Smolens, Tromps, that kind of stuff. So, not that the Trump's particularly scary with the gunboat. I'm just saying that because there was a game I played and the Tromp took me for a 1v1 in a gun battle, which was incredibly frustrating. But anywho, like we do always, let's dig around under the hood, go over some soft stats, talk a little bit about her, and then I'll show you some gameplay in her. Talk about some tips and tricks and what I found was very successful for me, and hopefully it will aid you in your conquest to conquer the seas with the Kiev. So, first things first, let's go over the armor layout. We are going from 16 to 19 millimeters, again, which is pretty standard for destroyers at Tier 8, so really nothing to write home about in regards of the armor scheme, guys. This is definitely not like Khabarovsk or Delny levels of armor that they actually do get 50 millimeter plating, which we will get to down the road in later videos. Yeah, that doesn't carry down through the to the Tier 8 or whatnot. So it kind of would be an interesting idea if the Kiev or this line did have some enhanced armor plating. I feel like it would really differentiate it a little bit more, kind of giving like that armored vibe to destroyers, especially when it comes to the mid tiers too. Would be kind of interesting concept, but then again, would that be deemed overpowered? I really have no idea. We'd have to, again, Wargaming would have to test that out or whatnot. So, going to survivability with the health pool of 17,500, and when we compare that to other ships at this tier, I do believe that the GJ Merkur is leading the pack with 22,300. So you are in the running there around the like 9 or 8 with the Kiev. So not terrible. Again, we've kind of noticed that the Soviet DDs are kind of in the mix with their HP pools, which again they're going to need. But again, with the heal that they have, it is going to allow them to have a little bit more survivability. Other DDs that do have the heal at this tier are like the Kid, for example, the Ognavoy, and the Orkin, and the Irland, I guess, are examples of having heals, right? And they all have the 14% heal, except for the Orkin that has the 10%. So pretty standard heals for destroyers. Going into the artillery, and finally the lights of the heavens shine down, and we have 3x2. We have the double gun barrel mounts in our turret, 130 millimeter guns. I'll put the firing angles on there for you guys as well. These guns feel super comfortable, and it's so nice to finally go to a double mounted, gun rather than just the singles. The singles just have so much worse dispersion in my opinion, and it is incredibly frustrating to use those. I just feel the dispersion is all over the place, and I don't get that vibe with these. These are our laser beams, like I've talked about, and more reliably hit the target, which is super nice, super nice. So we do have a 5-second reload time on these 130 millimeters guns. The 180-degree turn time is 12 seconds, and I do believe if you guys looked at my upgrades, I finally take aiming systems. I do not need the main battery turret traverse mod, which I believe is what is 15, 10%, something like that, in the slot 3. I finally can get away with using the aiming systems, which is super nice. Again, making my ship feel a little bit more accurate, which you will notice. Great, it's perfect. And then the maximum range is 12.3. And this is one thing I want to touch base on too, guys, when I'm going over certain builds with these ships. You actually will notice that on my Kiev, I do recommend going with the range mod. Now, why do I recommend going with the range mod? Because you're getting to these higher tiers, the DACA that other DDs are bringing is going to be substantial. And I feel because these ships have a slower reload for destroyers, at least in my opinion, slower reload, right, 5 seconds, they're best played at medium to longer ranges for their gun range. And getting that gun range out to 14 plus kilometers is super comfortable in my Kiev. It can be completely annoying, and mixed with that gun shell velocity, it feels very comfortable. Enemy ships will be pissed to shoot at you, and they will attempt to, and they will most likely miss if you have hands and know what you're doing and master the art of the rudder juke. So I definitely want to put that out there. Going into the high explosive shelves, you do have 1900 damage with an 8% fire chance. You are penning that 22 millimeters of effective armor because you have the 130 millimeters. And then again, we have the armor piercing with 2500 damage as well for the max sit damage. Again, like this line has always had those non-floaty shells, basically laser beams, right? Very comfortable. You can hit your target more reliably. I think again, emphasizing that we want to play longer ranges with these DDs, and this is something you will hear and see a lot within the community, especially early on when I remember the Cobb was still the tier 10. You got labeled the most selfish destroyer at tier 10 for the Cobb, and I'm pretty sure that transfers down to the rest of the line. You only had 4-kilometer torpedoes. These ships really, they had heels instead of smokes, and they'd go off on their own. They really wouldn't contest caps, and they'd farm. And I don't disagree with the playstyle of that. I do think these ships excel at going to a set flank, especially when they're by themselves, and being that annoying kind of thorn on the side, farming down ships with their guns constantly staying detected because they're farming. That's just what these ships do. They're basically light cruisers without a citadel. It's kind of how I play them. And then, of course, we have like the Elbing line that's taken it to the extreme and stuff like that. But these were the original, in my opinion. I'm not saying don't contest caps, but I think if you're playing solo, you have to ease on the side of caution when doing that. If you're with another destroyer, I think you could definitely be more aggressive and contest caps, as you can single-handedly bully other DDs, especially tier for tier out of caps, and eventually make them and force them to blow a smoke and smoke up. So that's kind of my tip with these ships. I should have probably stated that earlier on in this series, but that is a big one, and especially here at top tier, you're going to see that in my gameplay style and tactics. You're going to notice that I'm really not going to the cap. I'm really trying to stay more back and farm a little bit more. And again, the more people I have shooting at me means less shells going towards allied ships that are theoretically more influential with such radar or whatnot. So I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times cruisers have gone flat broadside to come and shoot me, and they show flat broadside to my battleships around, and they just absolutely nuke them because of that. So that is basically a check mark in you doing your job if they're doing that. So hence why I run the heel. This thing does have kind of a lull aspect to it. It does have this 85 millimeter secondary mount, which is double barreled. It has a 4% fire chance with a 1200 maximum damage, and it pens 14 millimeters of armor. Again, don't rely on this thing. I do wish we could manually control this thing, but every now and then, I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually gotten a secondary expert with this gun. The range does go, I believe, 5.3. So again, it's there. And make sure that if you get into really close ranges, you do hit your P key off, and it can potentially assist you with 1 or 2 shells, maybe. It's kind of a lull thing. Don't rely too much on it because it's a secondary mount and you can't control it. Torpedoes. We are coming with the 2x5, 533 millimeter launchers. Yes, the 5 launcher, the quintuplet, I believe is how you say it. Thank God. These things are awesome. So much better than the quads. And I think relatively the same, better, probably better than the triple too, because you have more torpedoes going down range. 180-degree turn time of 6 seconds, and they reload in 117 seconds. Maximum range is 8 kilometers. Maximum damage is 14,400 with a 55 knot speed and a detectability range of 1.1 kilometers. So relatively stealthy, guys, for these torps. Always felt comfortable in the Kiev. I remember it was a breath of fresh air back in the day because you finally went from 4 to 8. Thank God. But yeah, I mean, reaction time is 7.4, and I'm pretty sure that's because of the 55 knots. If you're pushing 60, it would be way less reaction time on these torps. But I still wouldn't, recommend speccing into torpedoes. They're kind of there because you have them, but it's not because you want to be utilizing them constantly and going out of your way to utilize them. Just my opinion on the matter. So. Going down to, okay, the AA defenses, I don't want to hit too much on this because, your DD AA already is kind of meh, except for a couple vessels. Like the Kiev is pretty much the GOAT at this tier for AA, especially when it's coupled with the defensive AA consumable. Your AA is pretty trash, but I have noticed when you are fighting tier 6 aircraft carriers, you are shooting down a couple more planes. Again, not preventing a strike, but definitely lessening the load of armaments coming your way from the sky. Against tier 8 aircraft carriers, yeah, you're a joke, and against tier 10 and or you can't fight super carriers, man. Tier 10 carriers, you're just fodder. So, just throwing that out there. Maneuverability, here we go. This is always a good one. 42.5 knots, again, showing that we are fairly quick in the water. 690 millimeters of turning circle radius, or sorry, meters, my bad. Fuck. Rudder shift time of 4.8 seconds. Again, I don't want to sit here and say these things aren't maneuverable. Because like the most maneuverable is the Benson with 2.7, where it's tied for a lot of DDs. But yeah, I mean, 5.6 is the worst, and that's Akazuki, and then GJ Marker's 5.5. So you're right there. I mean, you're probably not the most maneuverable DD if you want to label that, but I still find 4.8 very comfortable compared to someone who loves their Kaba, right? So again, it's not too much of a flaw in your design. You can clearly manage that if you play the ship well into its strengths. So. Now I do take the concealment module in the 5th slot, so I believe base tech by C is clocking in at, it's the highest at 8.5. And then with the concealment module, you get 7.7. And with your commander, with the stealth build, you get 6.9. You don't have to build into stealth. This is one thing I do want to tell you that you don't have to do. Some people just go full gunboat. Like, I don't want to call it lighthouse because it's not really like the right terminology for it, maybe. I'm not sure. But for me, I do recommend taking the concealment. A 6.9 is fairly comfortable, and especially when it comes time later in game, maybe there's a lot more enemy ships than there are allied ships. I find the 6.9 concealment good because I can fall on and off, detection when I choose, basically. As long as I manage my positioning right and my trigger finger. And then I believe, yeah, your smoke firing penalty is 3.4, which I believe is fairly high if you do run the smoke screen. So just an FYI there, guys. But yeah, that's the Kiev. That's the package you get with the Kiev. And I know there were some changes that were made to this ship from update 14.3, and maybe I'll throw those up on the screen earlier on in the video, whatever, just to like go over kind of the big changes that were made. I'm not sure. But yeah, my final thoughts on the Kiev here before I show you some gameplays. No, she was very awesome. I really did enjoy the ship. Ship was super comfortable. It was a big upgrade from the Minsk for me at least, and I really feel like I can have decent battle impact with this ship. The ship definitely excels, in my opinion, by being the lone warrior of the seas. Between like your team's fleet, you're in the middle, and then with the enemy team's fleet, I find like that ship really operates well there. But then keeping good distance from enemy vessels, 10 plus kilometers when engaging certain ships. And again, if you spec into the main battery and extending that range, it really does feel a bit more comfortable as you could go a little bit further back on 12, 13 kilometers. Really get the most out of those guns and reliably hit your targets. Just be an annoying piece of shit is basically what I'm trying to say. That is what you want to do. And the last thing I do want to talk about is you did see that in the 5th slot, I run the engine boost modification. Here on out with the Kiev, the Tashkent, and the Downey, and this does apply to my Kaba as well, I find that you are your hardest to hit and at your strongest when your speed boost is active. That is why I recommend doing the propulsion, or the propulsion, the engine room, or whatever it's called, the engine boost consumable, like I just showed you here, the engine boost modification 1, to extend or to make your consumable action time plus 30%. It's going to last longer. When it's lasting longer, you have a wider window to take the most advantage of your engine boost and being kind of a pest and hit and be hard to hit, right? Being able to juke a lot of shells a lot easier than without it on. That's why I recommend for the next 3 ships, I do recommend taking that consumable. If you don't, go ahead and take the steering gear one. And I'll probably throw that up on like my upgrades, what I recommend, just like as a standard like build for this DD. But if you want to be a little bit more ballsy, you don't have a lot of coal like I do, you have all the coal ships, you're not doing that anymore, all the legendary commanders, and you're like, you know what, I just want to start slotting some of these like upgradable consumable upgrades on my vessels. The Kiev, the Tashkent, and the Delny, again the Kaba as a side note as well, all really benefit from having that upgrade in that second slot. So I do recommend that because it really synergizes well with the heal as well, right? So, and again, it can also work well with your smoke if you need to disengage, your smoke's ready to dissipate or whatever, and you find yourself that you have to shoot and you're in open water and you still want to be able to, play the game and not wait. That allows you to do that as well. A little bit more comfortable, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So, okay, but anyways, for that, let's stop talking about the Kiev and port, and let's talk about her in the battle. All right, fellas, here we are in battle. First off, I wanted to say this. I was trying to find like a good game or something that I can show you guys, like some decent footage to have in the background that kind of highlights like the pros and the cons of this ship. I played this ship numerous amounts of times. I can't remember, maybe like 10, 15 times. Had some pretty damn good games in her. Had some really shit games too. So definitely, I definitely know the pros and cons, the strengths and weaknesses of this ship. So when I'm talking about it, yeah, please listen because holy hell, I do want to help you guys as much as I possibly can to get the most out of her like I did and have a good time. So even if it isn't a good ship, you can still be effective in battle, and I think that's kind of my main goal here is to do what I possibly can or do everything I possibly can to help you guys or ensure you guys having a fun experience when playing the ship. But sometimes those ships, no matter what you do, it's just destined not to be a fun experience for you, and I hope that's not the case with the Kiev. At least it shouldn't be coming from the Mint, at least in my experience. So anyways, this game kind of highlights the general ideas play style behind this ship. I think these ships are incredibly strong when it comes to ships pushing into them. I think most DDs are, but when you are doing the pushing, you're kind of at the mercy of the enemy team and kind of their deployment. But I do want to highlight, notice how I'm not going directly into the cab, knowing that the enemy team has a couple of radars, especially one of them being the split. I just know that I'm instantly going to get radared. I think it's a CV game too, so again, CV's kind of tough in order to really play the caps well, especially in a detectable gunboat DD. So I would like to probably go wide here and see if my carrier can potentially spot the enemy destroyer and I would be heading to this cap so I can start farming him for free. And sure enough, he does catch a glimpse of this enemy split. I'm going to preemptively launch my torpedoes. Maybe the guy will sail into them. Maybe if he and I engage in an artillery conflict here, maybe he'll sail and open up full broadside into these torpedoes. It's kind of my initial thought process. But he's pretty keen on going to the cap. So I go ahead right away and I open up my main battery here. And you can see, again, the shell velocity, the shell travel time of these shells are super comfortable. Reliably hitting my target, and you guys will definitely notice that. Also, notice the accuracy of the shells. Because now I'm running the aim system mod, again, I give you guys that, but also because you have the 2 guns per one, turret, like the double mount there, so much more comfortable and accurate with the dispersion values of the ship. So that is always nice to see. So really, you can pinpoint your spots on enemy vessels and really hit them. Definitely, the split has great artillery too. Definitely not knocking the split, but I think we're definitely in my element here. Granted, it was a little bit tough because the aircraft carrier did detect him. So he was dealing, and I'm sure there were other ships shooting at him too. So there were multiple vessels engaging him at once. So again, I totally get it. But I do like to believe that I put myself in the most favorable position to win that engagement based upon what I did. So now that we have the enemy destroyer threat neutralized on this side, I think I can go ahead and play the cap. Obviously, my team has already recognized the map very well and went ahead and capped it already, which is awesome. You'll love to see that. So we're going to go ahead and start farming this enemy Pommern here while being conscientious of the Amagi because he already hit me once here. See if we can eliminate him. So we go ahead and match the scoreboard here with 2v2, even though both of our destroyers have already gone down, which are way more influential than a destroyer and a battleship. But hey, subtle wins. You know what I say? Doesn't really matter. So, but yeah, I mean, again, this was a replay that I actually was not fully spec'd on my artillery range, so you can see that my range is only limited to 12.3, which is rather sad. I wish I could show you guys a little better footage of this ship with an upgraded range, which I believe is like 14 point something and some change. Just trust me that that you're definitely going to want to do that, especially if you're running the heal build like I showed you previously with the upgrades and what not to take. Well, the upgrades are pretty self-explanatory, but the captain skills, definitely if you run to extend your main battery firing range with that 4th commander skill there, it's really going to allow your ship to really shine and outtrade a lot of ships. Also, that coupled with the Fearless Brawler skill, because you're going to be detected anyways, because you're going to be shooting at those ranges, you're permanently going to get that buff to your reload, which is super nice. Whereas now, I'm only getting that buff when I'm around 12.3 kilometers away or under, so that doesn't feel as good, but hey, what are you going to do? I think I'm like a couple points away from potentially getting that. I'm not 100% sure. I forgot what level commander I have on this thing. I think it's about a 14, 15, something like that. But yeah, that is definitely one thing I would recommend. Now, if you're running the smoke variation of this ship, I do have it laid out completely on what I would take for your captain skills. And the reason why you're changing with those captain skills is basically you do want to pick up the superintendent. Now, one discussion we can have is, well, why, Waffle, aren't you taking superintendent with your gun firing build to get the extra heal? That is a great question. And I'm going to try to explain it to you in a couple ways. Based upon the skills that I already am taking and I'm sliding into, I would much rather have the range with the Fearless Brawler skill than have to opt out of that to take the Superintendent skill. I don't want to drop survivability. That's my healing ability, or not my healing ability, my bad. My HP advantage going up. So what I'm basically trying to say is that the extending the gun range with the Fearless Brawler skill is way more impactful in more situations than me just having another heal or get out of free jail card, basically is what I'm trying to say. The longer range anyways is going to lead to an increase in your survivability, per to speak, as long as you're not caught deep and not being able to disengage is what I'm trying to say, or aimlessly shooting. But it's going to increase your survivability anyways because you're further back, being harder to hit is going to increase your survivability, right guys? So that's kind of what I'm trying to say. It's kind of a weird explanation, and if you're following along with me, hopefully you're like, oh, okay, I think I see what you're talking about. If you're thinking of a fucking idiot, that's fine too. We all have our certain ticks and niches in the game and what I find to be successful. I've ran a different couple builds on my Kiev Captain. One, I tried running a non-concealment build, Fearless Brawler, gun range extender, and it's like it can work, but when you get up tier, this thing just doesn't have the ability to really stay alive as long. So then I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. Then let me take a smoke screen. Well, that's kind of nullifying my Fearless Brawler skill, no? So then why on my smoke screen build are you still taking the Fearless Brawler? Because your concealment is so high and you're the highest per the tier, I just think it's a no-brainer to have that skill on, as you are a gunboat and most likely won't just be firing from the concealment of your smoke screen all game. You're not going to have that ability. You're going to be detected and most likely going to be shooting your guns while you're detected. That's just kind of this thing in a nutshell. So that's why I'm always taking the Fearless Brawler skill. I think it's 4 points that are going to be very impactful and beneficial to your ship. Also, not to mention, I'm pretty sure it adds like an extra flak charge or whatever. I'm going to just throw that in there. Not that that's much. That doesn't weigh too much on my decision process or decision making with taking the skill. It's mainly just to get that plus 10% or minus 10% reload time while my ship is detected. So that's really the main reason why I do it. it's something that I never used to take on my DDs back in the day when way back in the day when they did the commander skill rework. I was like, why would I do that? Blah, blah, blah. But then, yeah, obviously that was quickly thrown away. And when I realized that a lot of my even, somewhat gunboat DDs were getting out traded and outmatched by ships that really didn't have the fastest reload, but they must have been slotting the Fearless Brawler skill. So it's like, oh, okay. Also, not to mention, with the another reason why I don't run Superintendent, especially with my open water gunfiring heal build, is because I need Adrenaline Rush. You're gonna take damage. You're obviously going to take damage, and that's just gonna buff everything about your ship. So I don't know why you wouldn't take that skill. To me, it's kind of baffling. Like, I understand some torpedo destroyers, theoretically, ones that really rely on stealth and really not going to be detected all game, to not take it. But more often than not, you're gonna be taking damage in any of your ships that you play. With the slight, argument that the aircraft carrier is realistically right. Not, whatever, but like, yeah, you're gonna want Superintendent. I mean, I've seen some people with their trolley build that they don't run it. Especially with some DDs, some people don't run Last Stand, which is crazy to me. But hey, I mean, if it works for you, it works for you. It's just for me and my personal preference. I think Adrenaline Rush is a no-brainer. So I don't know why you wouldn't take it, right? But yeah, that's my main reason. I'd rather invest, 3 points in Adrenaline Rush than utilize my last 4 remaining points, or whatever, or sorry, my other 3 points on the Superintendent. It's kind of like you have to pick or poison there, and the Adrenaline Rush to me makes more sense when you break it down. So that's why I do what I do with that. The armor piercing on this vessel, I do want to talk about just a slight bit, along with the HE as well. So I guess the guns in general, the ammunition type. The AP does slap. It definitely does slap. You have your standard fuse times on the ship. I think it's what 0.010 second fuse time. Again, it's at its max range, like around 12 kilometers or so. You are having 65 millimeters of penetration on these guns. I believe if you get close enough, we're talking like sub what 2 kilometers. You can theoretically penetrate like a Minotaur, and all that. I believe at like, what, 6 kilometers you can actually sit it out, or 4 kilometers, something like that. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you can do it. So the armor piercing definitely does slap. 130 millimeter armor piercing does hit hard. And the sucky thing is you only have 3 turrets, so you have 6 guns. The COP, you get fucking 8 guns, and that really does some damage. Especially when I release that video for you guys, you'll see when I'm using armor piercing on a lot of battleships or cruisers, it definitely hits hard. But you do clock in with 2,500 shell damage, and the initial speed and drag coefficient, like the initial speed coming out of the barrel is 870 meters a second, and the flight time at let's say at your 12 kilometers, is your base range, your flight time is 6.8 seconds. So these are fast shells, and if you take the skill that extends your main battery firing range by what 20%, it is 15-20%. I mean, you're still rocking 9.8 second travel time. So these shells are great. You're going to be hitting your target reliably, and again, that's the most important thing, is being able to hit your target. So, and that's why I recommend going for more of a range build on this thing. I think most players would recommend doing that too. And again, the 8% fire chance, again, that can be buffed, I believe, up to 10 if you do choose to take the demolition export and you take the signal flags. I do recommend taking the signal flags to get it up to 9. Demo export, for me, I just don't have 2 points left over to take it, and I'd rather spend those points on other various captain skills, like we've already discussed, like I showed you earlier on in this video. I mean, if you think demo expert is a must, and you'd say, hey, I can justify getting away with some other stuff just in order to pick my demo expert, by all means, go ahead. For me, it's kind of meaningless. It's only going to add an additional 1% fire chance to your ship. I just don't think it's worth the 2 points when it comes to the Kiev and its gunboating. So, just my opinion. So just some final thoughts here on the Kiev, guys. I think the Kiev is a great little ship here, and I think you're going to have a fun time enjoying her. The big thing I want you to take away from the Kiev, at least in my opinion, is that you not only have the gunpowder to really start doing some serious damage, but you also have those 8-kilometer torpedoes you can throw in the water, and hopefully they hit something. Yes, you have the ability to stealth torpedo now, because I think your concealment when you do a full stealth build is 6.9 kilometers, but really, realistically, they're just there to hopefully or potentially have someone sail into them. You're not really going to be utilizing them a whole lot to do the stealth torpedoing role. They're just flat out better DDs in that role. And all in all, you want to be an annoying pest. You want to be constantly shooting your guns, and you want to be pushing deterrence. And having people shoot you again is a big win for your team, because the more people shooting you is the less people being able to shoot your team and exposing flat broadside to larger guns on your team that'll hopefully send them back to port. That is the big thing, the big draw for me with these ships. It's just being an annoying little shit, and I love that. I love that. Um, when you there's two ways to play the ship. If you're solo on your flank, go you can definitely go wide, not towards the cap, and be like that solo warrior, that lone wolf kind of play style. That is very effective and proven. If you have another destroyer on your flank, you have to go support your DD. You want to make sure he's supported, because if you lose him, that is losing your vision. Especially we're talking a non-carrier game, and you don't want to lose your vision, guys, because playing this thing by yourself or with other destroyers on the same flank as you and not being able to spot them, and you're just constantly spotted and you can't fall off, it fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. So make sure you support your destroyers by all means. So anyways, guys, as this video is wrapping up, I want to say hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more videos, because I will be cranking them out as fast as I possibly can, but in good taste. So I will see myself out, guys. Thank you very much, and I will catch you all next time, eh? Have a good one, and peace out.